Don't marry him. That's what he said. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet whisper. So close, I felt it brush against my skin. The groom isn't who you think he is. Trust no one. Tell me, what would you do in that moment? Because I froze. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. At 68 years old, I thought I had seen everything. Loss, betrayal, loneliness, even rebuilding a life from nothing. I thought nothing could truly shake me anymore. But that whisper, it did. I was standing at my wedding rehearsal, bouquet in hand, surrounded by people I loved. My daughter Elise was adjusting the aisle decorations. My grandson was giggling, throwing petals too early. My sister was arguing about seating charts like it was a national emergency. And at the front of it all, Harold. 72, charming, gentle. The man I believed had given me a second chance at love after 20 long years alone. Everything looked perfect. So why did it suddenly feel wrong? I turned to look at the man who had whispered to me, but he was already stepping away, blending into the crowd like he belonged there. No panic, no urgency, just gone. And here's the part that unsettled me the most. No one else reacted. No one noticed. It was like it never happened. I tried to steady myself. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe he had mistaken me for someone else. Weddings bring out strange behavior in people, right? That's what I told myself. Until I looked at Harold. He was smiling, laughing with Elise, completely normal. But then, just for a second, his expression changed. Flat, still, watching me. Not with love, not with warmth, just watching. And the moment our eyes met, the smile came back instantly, like a switch had been flipped. Tell me something. Have you ever seen someone do that? Smile, just a little too fast. That's when the doubt crept in. Small at first, barely noticeable, but it was there. And once it started, it didn't stop. I tried to shake it off, I really did, because this wasn't just any moment. This was my moment. My second chance, my happiness. But as the rehearsal wrapped up and people began to leave, I felt it again. That same presence. I turned, and there he was, standing at the back of the hall, watching me. Only this time, he wasn't pretending to belong, and he definitely wasn't smiling. I didn't sleep that night, not even for a minute. Tell me, have you ever had a single sentence replay in your head so many times it starts to change shape? The groom isn't who you think he is. At first, it sounded ridiculous. By midnight, it sounded unlikely. By 3 a.m., it started to sound possible. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Harold breathing steadily beside me, completely at ease. And that's what unsettled me most, how normal he seemed. Too normal. Because suddenly, little things didn't feel so little anymore. We met 2 years ago at a charity fundraiser. He approached me first, said he admired how I spoke about rebuilding my life after my husband passed. Said he understood that kind of loneliness. And he did all the right things. Flowers, calls, long conversations. But now, lying there in the dark, I asked myself something I hadn't dared to before. Was it too perfect? By the 3rd month, he was already talking about marriage. By 6 months, he gently suggested I sell my house. Why maintain 2 places? He said. We should simplify. Start fresh together. At the time, it felt romantic. Now, it felt strategic. The next morning, I tried to act normal. I really did. I sat across from Elise at the kitchen table, stirring my coffee like nothing had changed. "So," I said lightly, "something strange happened yesterday." I told her about the man, the whisper, the warning. I expected her to laugh. She didn't. She went very still. "Mum," she said slowly, "what did he look like?" I described him. Mid-50s, sharp eyes, calm voice, and right there, something shifted in her face. Recognition. Not fear, not confusion. Recognition. My stomach dropped. "You've seen him before?" I asked. She hesitated. Too long. I'm not sure," she said finally. "It's just weird." Weird. That word again. Why wouldn't she just tell me? The rest of the day felt off, like I was walking through something fragile, ready to crack. And Harold? He wasn't helping. He kept stepping outside to take calls, checking his phone constantly, lowering his voice when I got close. "Who keeps calling?" I asked at one point. He smiled, quick, polished. "Just some old business ties, nothing important." But that didn't make sense. He'd been retired for years, so what business could possibly still follow him around like that? That night, during the pre-wedding dinner, I couldn't take it anymore. I excused myself quietly and stepped into the hallway. And the moment I did, I saw him, the stranger, standing just outside the door, like he knew I'd come looking. My heart started pounding. Every instinct told me to walk away. I didn't. I stepped toward him instead. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice barely steady. "And what did you mean?" He looked directly at me, calm, certain, like he had been waiting for this exact moment. And then he said, "I'm here because someone has to tell you the truth, before it's too late." "The truth?" I repeated. My voice didn't even sound like mine anymore. The man nodded once, steady and controlled. "My name is Victor," he said, "and you don't know the man you're about to marry. Let me ask you something. How do you react when a stranger calmly dismantles your entire reality?" Because I wanted to laugh. I wanted to call this insane, walk back inside and pretend none of this was happening. But I didn't. Because Victor didn't look desperate. He didn't look unstable. He looked certain. "He's done this before," Victor continued. "Different cities, different names, same pattern." My chest tightened. "No," I said quickly. "No, that's not possible. I've known Harold for 2 years." Victor didn't argue. He just reached into his coat and handed me a photograph. "Then look." My hands hesitated before taking it, and the moment I saw it, everything inside me dropped. It was Harold. No question. Same smile, same posture. But the woman beside him, not me. She was younger, mid-60s maybe, wearing a wedding dress, standing close to him like she trusted him completely, like I did. I flipped the photo over. A date was printed in the corner. 3 years ago. "Who is she?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Victor's jaw tightened. "My sister." Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. "She married him under a different name," he continued. 6 months later, she was dead. My heart started pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. "What are you saying?" I asked. "I'm saying," he said, his voice lower now, sharper, "that every woman he marries ends up losing everything before she dies." I shook my head immediately. No, this is too much. You expect me to believe he's some kind of, what? A criminal? A killer? "I expect you to verify it," Victor said calmly. That word stuck. Verify. Not believe. Not trust. Check. He stepped slightly closer, lowering his voice. "He gains access to their finances, encourages asset transfers, gains legal control. Then suddenly, they get sick, weak, confused. By the time anyone questions it, it's too late." My mind raced. The house, the accounts, the urgency to simplify. "No," I whispered, but this time it sounded weaker, because pieces were starting to connect. And I hated it. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, almost pleading now. Victor's composure cracked, just slightly. "Because I didn't get there in time for her," he said. "And I'm not letting it happen again." That hit harder than anything else. I looked back down at the photo, then back at him. "What if you're wrong?" I asked. He didn't hesitate. "Then you lose nothing by checking," he said. "But if I'm right..." He let the sentence hang, and then finished it quietly. "If you marry him tomorrow, you won't get another chance to ask questions." He stepped back, turned, and walked away, leaving me standing there, holding proof I didn't want, and a decision I wasn't ready to face. I didn't confront him, not that night, not the next morning. Because tell me this, what do you do when the truth is sitting right in front of you, but saying it out loud might destroy everything? You stay quiet, and you start looking, carefully. That night, I lay beside Harold, listening to his steady breathing, feeling the weight of what I now suspected pressing down on my chest. He looked so peaceful, so harmless. And yet Victor's words wouldn't let go. Different names, same pattern. I waited, counted his breaths, until I was sure he was asleep. Then slowly, I reached for his phone. My hands were trembling, not dramatically, just enough to make every movement feel louder than it should have been. The screen lit up. No password. That alone felt strange. I opened his messages first, normal at a glance, but then names I didn't recognize. Conversations that stopped abruptly. Threads that felt incomplete, like pieces had been removed. I kept going. Emails, attachments, documents. And then I saw it. A name. Not Harold. Martin Hale. It appeared again, and again, and again. In account confirmations, in legal documents, in file names he clearly didn't expect anyone else to open. My chest tightened. Slowly, I opened my browser and typed it in. Martin Hale. Search. And there it was. A photo. His face. Same man, different name. Beneath it, a headline. A woman dead under unclear medical circumstances. Date, 3 years ago. I felt the air leave my lungs. I clicked the article. Read every word. Husband listed as Martin Hale. No charges filed. Case closed. But not forgotten. Not anymore. I sat there in the dark, the glow of the phone illuminating everything I didn't want to see. Victor was telling the truth. Every word. But I didn't stop. Because I needed to know how far this went. Bank records, transfers, property filings, a pattern. Clean, quiet, repeated. And then a message popped up right in front of me from an unknown contact. Is everything ready for tomorrow? I froze. Another message followed seconds later. Once it's signed, we move fast. Signed. Move fast. My heart started racing. This wasn't just suspicion anymore. This was a plan. A timed, calculated plan. And I was right in the middle of it. I locked the phone, placed it back exactly where I found it, then lay down beside him again, staring into the darkness. Because the man next to me wasn't Harold. And in just a few hours, I was supposed to marry him. But instead of running, I made a different decision. A dangerous one. I closed my eyes and made a plan of my own. I was going to go through with the wedding. The music started right on time, soft, elegant, familiar. And somehow, that made everything feel even more unreal. Because as I walked down the aisle, every eye on me, every smile warm and celebratory, I carried a secret no one else in that room fully understood. Tell me, could you do it? Walk towards someone you now know is lying to you and not let it show? Because I did. Every step was steady, measured, controlled. Harold, Martin, stood at the altar, looking exactly as he always had. Calm, confident, certain of the outcome, certain of me. But this time, I was watching him the way he had watched me. Carefully. The ceremony began. Words were spoken, vows exchanged. I repeated mine without hesitation. Not because I meant them, but because I needed him to believe I did. And when the officiant reached the final question, "Do you take?" "Yes," I said, cutting in early. A few guests chuckled softly. It looked like excitement, like eagerness, exactly what he expected. Papers were brought forward, the final step, the moment everything would become legally binding. He reached for the pen, and that's when everything stopped. "Martin Hale?" The voice cut cleanly through the room, not loud, but sharp enough to freeze everything in place. Two police officers stepped forward, then more. Confusion spread instantly. Whispers, shifting chairs, rising tension. Harold's expression changed. Not dramatically, just enough. The confidence cracked. "What is this?" he asked, his voice tight. I didn't raise mine. I didn't need to. "That's your real name," I said. Silence fell. Heavy. Absolute. The officers moved in, informing him of the charges: fraud, identity theft, financial exploitation. He tried to speak, to explain, to redirect. But this time, there was nowhere for him to go. Victor stood at the back, watching, not intervening, just witnessing the moment that should have happened years ago. Logical payoff. The investigation unfolded quickly after that. Everything Victor told me was verified. Multiple aliases, marriage records across different states, financial transfers executed shortly after each wedding. Each woman, isolated, financially drained, and in 2 cases, deceased under suspicious circumstances. The cases were reopened, this time with evidence, this time with attention. Emotional payoff. I didn't break down at the venue, not when they took him away, not when the room filled with whispers and questions. I held myself together, for my daughter, for my family. But later, at home, in the quiet, that's when it hit. Not grief for him, but the weight of how close I came to losing everything. My home, my savings, my life. And something even harder to admit, my judgment.
Consequence, payoff.
Martin Hale was formally charged. Fraud, identity theft, financial exploitation. And as investigators dug deeper, more families came forward. More stories surfaced, patterns confirmed. The deaths, once dismissed, were reopened and re-examined. For the first time, there was a real chance at accountability. Elise struggled at first. She blamed herself for not pushing harder, for not trusting her instincts. But we worked through it, together. And Victor, he came to see me once more. No warnings this time, just quiet closure. Final resolution moment. I didn't get married that day, but I didn't lose my life either. I kept my home, my independence, my name. And I walked away with something far more valuable than a wedding ever could have given me. Clarity. Because trust isn't about how good something looks on the surface. It's about what holds up when you start asking questions. And sometimes, the most important truth you'll ever hear doesn't come from someone you know. It comes as a whisper, right before everything changes.